Hello Cardinals, and welcome to today's flipped lesson. If you haven't already, you should be opening up your books to page 561 so that you're ready to get started when I begin your solve and share. So today's agenda is we will do our solve and share, we'll hit the look back, we will do our guided practice, and then you will be in your independent practice for the rest of the time. Alright, so today's lesson is on multiplying whole numbers by mixed numbers. So our I can statement is I can use area models, drawings, and equations to represent and solve problems involving multiplying a whole number and a mixed number. Whew, that was a mouthful. Alright, so let's take a look at our problem. Jerry is filling his sand pail and pouring the sand into a large bucket. And we see a small pail and then a larger bucket. And at the bottom of those models, we see some values. So I see 2 3/4, and I see that the large bucket holds 30 pounds. So those are some values I need to keep in mind. Here comes my question. Can the bucket hold 8 of Jerry's pails full of sand? So using my knowledge of multiplying fractions by whole numbers, I know that the whole number is going to tell me how many groups. So I know that that's going to be a part of my equation. So my whole number in my question is 8. And then looking back at the pictures that we saw earlier, you can see that Jerry's pail can hold 2 3/4 pounds. So we're going to solve this equation, and then we need to compare our solution to the 30 pounds that the big bucket can hold. All right, when we multiply mixed numbers, we're going to break up the mixed number into the whole number and the fractional part. So the first part of the first step is going to be to multiply the whole numbers. So I have an 8 and a 2, and I know that 8 times 2 equals 16. So I've taken care of the whole number in my mixed number, and now I need to look at the fractional part, and I'm going to do 8 times 3/4. When I multiply fractions, I just multiply my numerator. So 8 times 3 equals 24. And my denominator stays the same. The denominator is 4. Now I'm going to change this improper fraction into a mixed number. So I'm going to look at my denominator and think to myself, how many times does 4 go into 24? The answer is that 4 goes into 24 6 times, because 4 times 6 equals 24. Now I have the solution to multiplying 8 by my whole number, and that was 16, and then multiplying 8 by the fractional part, and the solution to that problem was 6. So now I need to combine by adding 16 plus 6, which is 22. And then remember, we had to go back and compare to this large bucket, and the value that the large bucket can hold is 30. So can the bucket hold 8 of Jerry's pails? Yes, it can, because 22 is less than 30. I'll give you about 10 seconds to make sure that you have a paper that matches mine. Okay, let's take a look at our look back. The look back says, how do you know that you need to multiply to solve this problem? So we need to go back up to our solve and share, and we need to identify which part of the problem gives us the clue to tell us that our operation is going to be multiplication. So back up to the problem, it reads, Jerry is filling his sand pail and pouring the sand into a large bucket. Can the bucket hold 8 of Jerry's pails full of sand? So we talked about earlier how the 8 is our whole number, and the 8 is representing a bucket full. And if we're going to pour a bucket 8 times that has the amount of sand that the pail can hold, which was 2 3/4, we know that we have 8 equal groups of 2 3/4 because we poured the pail 8 times. So how do you know you need to multiply to solve this problem? Because there are 8 groups of 2 3/4. Take 15 seconds to make sure that your paper matches my screen. All right, boys and girls, we are at our guided practice. You need to make sure that you're laser focused and ready to solve the problems and catching on to the steps, because the key is to make sure that you understand the steps, because everything we're doing you know how to do. You know how to multiply whole numbers and you know how to multiply fractions, so we just need to get the steps down in order to combine those two things that we already know. So number 1 is using structure, and piece 7. In the problem on the previous page, so that was working with our buckets. Oh, excuse me, this is back to the animation on the other page, so it's Ellie and her blankets. So we're going to have to look back at that in your book, and I'll give you the value and the equation. So in the problem on the previous page, how much fabric would Ellie need if she wanted to make 6 blankets? And we're going to explain by showing an equation. So please excuse the intercom that just cut in. So in the problem with Ellie and her blankets, she needed 2 2/3 yards of fabric for each blanket. So our equation is going to be 6 times 2 2/3. All right. When we multiply mixed numbers, we're going to break it up into whole numbers and fractions. So my first step is to do 6 times 2, which is 12. My next step is to do 6 times my fraction, which is 2/3. When I multiply fractions, I'm going to multiply the numerator. So 6 times 2, again, is 12, with the denominator 3. Okay, the next step is to make sure that I change this improper fraction into a whole number. So 12/3 is the same as 4 because 3 goes into 12 4 times. Now finally I can combine my parts. 12 plus 4 equals 16 yards. All right, for number 2, we're going to modify the question a little bit. It says find 3 1/3 using 2 methods, and we're just going to use one method to practice this the way that I've showed you. So we're going to break up 3 times 1/3, 1 1/3 into whole numbers. So 3 times 1 equals 3. Now we're going to multiply the fraction. 3 times 1/3 equals 3/3. Ooh, that looks familiar. 3/3 is the same as 1. Now I can combine my parts. 3 plus 1 equals 4. So 3 times 1 1/3 equals 4. So now we can see sometimes when we multiply a mixed number, we can come out with an even number, and we see that a few times now. All right, on to number 3. I'm going to do my whole numbers first. 2 times 2 equals 4. Then I'm going to do my fraction. 2 times 1/4 equals 2/4. Then I'm going to combine my parts. So I'm going to add my 4 and my 2/4. So it's 4 2/4. Now you might notice that you can rewrite 2/4 using an equivalent fraction. And we know that 2 is half of 4, so 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. So you could write it as 4 2/4 or 4 1/2. All right, last one, number 4. We are going to multiply our whole numbers. This one's very easy. 2 times 1 equals 2. And now we'll multiply the fraction. 2 times 1/2 equals 2/2, and we can rename that as 1. Finally, I'm going to combine my 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3. Easy peasy. All right, we're going to do 2 from your independent practice just as a little bit extra practice today, and then you'll be responsible for the rest of your independent practice on your own. So we'll do number 5 and 6 together, and then you'll be on your own for 7 through 18 in the back. All right, so number 5 reads 2 times 3 1/2. We're going to do the whole numbers first. 2 times 3 equals 6. Then we'll do the fractional part. 2 times 1/2 equals 2/2. 2/2 is the same as 1. And 6 plus 1 equals 7. So 2 times 3 1/2 equals 7. And our very last example together, we have 2 times 1 2/5. So I'll do my whole numbers first. 2 times 1 equals 2. Then I'll do my fraction. 2 times 2/5 equals 4/5. Now this is very easy because 2 times 2/5 didn't even give me an improper fraction, so I didn't have to rename my product at all. So I can just combine 2 2/4 and just write it as a mixed number, 2 2/4. I can combine 2 4/5 to make 2 and 4/5 as a mixed number. Easy as that.
360.
Okay, we have completed our guided practice plus 2 bonus problems from your independent practice. So for your work today, you are going to be responsible for the remaining page for your independent practice. Then you will do your math practices and problem solving on the back side. If you finish both of those, then you may start your homework. If you finish your homework, then you may silently read a book. And it's very, very important that we are quiet if we finish early, because some people need it to be nice and quiet as they concentrate. And some people are going to take a little bit more time, especially to convert their improper fractions to mixed numbers and then to add those on. So I know that you are all going to do a fabulous job completing your work. And just remember to tear out your homework and be ready to go for this evening.